Hello, everybody. Welcome on into another episode of Press Coverage, where we help you gain an edge in fantasy football. This time, we are talking preseason storylines. I'm your host, as always, Wyatt Brittle, and with me today, the analytics king of Player Profiler, Evan Ringler. Evan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Excited to be here talking with you. Preseason football is here. We've gotten one game so far, although it's the Hall of Fame game. It's never quite the same as the rest of the preseason, but we've got a little taste, and we've got some more coming this week, and we got some interesting players and situations to talk about. So why don't we just jump right in and give the people what they want? Because I really am excited for this one. Travis Hunter conversation. I think it's one of the biggest storylines of all of fantasy football, basically, now that he's in the NFL. We're trying to figure out how much offense, how much defense he's actually going to play. They're kind of going back and forth in practice on how much he's doing each practice. Recently in an interview with Liam Cohen, he gets asked about how much he could play on offense. He says could play 80% of the offensive snaps. It gets everyone excited. How are you actually feeling about what Travis Hunter is going to do for the Jags as a rookie?
It's just going to be so unique. I've been a huge fan of Travis Hunter for several years now, and I think that a lot of people are somewhat underrating his ability to potentially play both ways in a near full-time capacity in the NFL. I mean, he just did it in college, so I think he could probably do in the NFL too. Maybe not as a rookie, but I think the upside, especially for fantasy, comes from the schemed and designed targets that he'll likely see. His snap share might not be the highest, but when he's on the field, he will be on the field specifically to earn targets, most likely.
Right.
He'll, every snap he's out there will probably be him doing basically nothing as a decoy, or he's getting the ball. And that's a pretty
Right.
nice place to be for fantasy. Maybe a 30% target rate isn't out of the question.
Yeah. Now, at his current price, he's kind of going as a lower end, middle to low end wide receiver 3, most places right now. It varies a little bit depending on the platform you're on. But has that price been attractive for you for 2025?
Yeah, I'm right around consensus at the moment. It's one of these things where it's a floor ceiling discussion. Very low floor, very high ceiling, I would say. And I want to be in when I can be in redraft. I think is the place that his ADP will likely be a little bit lower once we start seeing more drafts rolling, and in that setting, then I can be more aggressive on targeting him.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would expect when we get to full on redraft season, like as all the home leagues are drafting closer to the season, his ADP would be lower because he's much easier to draft in best ball where you don't have to put him in your lineup and hope that he scores that week. You can just kind of take the points as they come, which I think are going to fluctuate through the season. I think the amount he plays on offense is going to fluctuate week to week. Now, there's a possibility that the Jaguars find themselves in a place where they're like, we just need him on offense. Like, we just need the help there, which I think would make a lot of sense. Like, after Brian Thomas, not that much, right? That we can really count on as for pass catchers. So they could get to that fairly quickly, which would be great for people who have drafted Travis Hunter. I personally have been a little bit off overall. I'm getting some exposure. I want to make sure I have some exposure to Travis Hunter because he is so much of a unicorn, right? That like he is someone who could beat you in fantasy football if
For
you have no
sure.
exposure. But like you kind of said, I think it's possible he could do a lot of offense, a lot of defense, be very good at both positions. I'm not sure how quickly that happens for him in his NFL career. Now, there's an argument to be made in any type of best ball type of format, fast draft, underdog, anywhere like that. It's much better to draft him there where maybe at the end of the season he's peaking and he's scoring when we need him the most. But I do have some worries about over the course of the season what that production looks like.
Yeah, as you should. And also, there is more injury risk as he plays more snaps than
Yes.
everybody else, as he has to go tackle running backs on occasion or tight ends.
Yeah.
That's not something I generally want my receivers doing, but
Yeah.
he is a very special athlete. So I'm not super worried, but you are right to be concerned for sure.
Yeah, no, this isn't an IDP show. I don't play a lot of IDP. In fact, I don't play any IDP if I'm being honest. But something I thought was thinking about, like people who are getting super excited for Travis Hunter in IDP is like, do they even want him tackling? Like when he's out there, is he purely out to like shadow the number one wide receiver or play like slot corner, and not really stick his nose into the run? Like I don't know how much they're gonna like really deal with that on defense for him.
Yeah, I actually play quite a bit of IDP, and you'll see him in best ball drafts going in the top three almost every time in
Oh
redraft.
wow,
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because he is likely to score 20 plus points per game, and that's very rare in that format.
Yeah.
And I will say about him as a cornerback, he will probably play more on the outside, which is not valuable for IDP. However, he is a ball skills guy. His
Yeah, for sure.
If you watch his defensive highlights, it's just ridiculous the kind of balls that he can bring in. So maybe he can still be productive on that end.
Yeah, and that's why everyone's so excited for him, right? It's like he's just a natural catcher of the football, natural mover, um, really bendy, like just he's a unicorn through and through.
For sure.
All right. Second player of the day, Joe Mixon, and kind of the Texans backfield as a whole, because right now we don't know what's going on fully with Joe Mixon when he's going to be healthy. He's dealing with this ongoing foot injury. Um, the Texans traded a future third round pick to move up in the fourth round of the NFL draft this year to draft Woody Marks, who's a pass catching specialist more than anything at running back. They signed Nick Chubb to a 1 year, $2.5 million contract that has some incentives in it. I believe it can get up to $5 million. Right now, Dameon Pierce is on the pup. I kind of feel like the Texans have used as many assets as they're going to for the backfield at this point. Like, I don't think they're adding anyone else. Using the extra third to trade up for Woody Marks. I think signing Nick Chubb was they already knew this was kind of coming with Mixon, that maybe the foot was not as good as they were hoping. And we just kind of got that preemptive signing from them. Have you been in on Mixon at all this offseason? How are you feeling now? What do we think?
I was definitely in on him from the jump, just because with the new scheme there, I think that was some upside that he could potentially outperform what he did last year, and the offense could have taken a step. At this point, I am out. I am behind consensus in most formats. Um, the way I view this backfield is the two that I'm interested in terms of upside are Mixon or Woody Marks. Nick Chubb, I just don't see it. He wasn't very good last year, and he's also coming off another injury, not the knee injury, the broken foot. So I'm just out on Chubb, but Woody Marks I am extremely interested in. I want to be well ahead of consensus, and he's an active target for me.
I'm kind of in lockstep with you here on diagnosing this backfield. I was in on Mixon at the beginning of the offseason. He's kind of just been this like old reliable over the last few years. Each year, people fade Joe Mixon because he's unexciting and he's another year older. And every year he seems to produce because he consolidates touches in whatever backfield he plays in, and that's what he was
Right.
doing for Houston. But then once we got like the second set of bad news about the foot, I was like, all right, hands off. Let's see where this ADP goes across the industry, and I can decide later on if I want to get back in. I've still kept that hands-off approach because we haven't gotten anything good, and the price just continues to drop. So I'm just going to let it drop and see how far it gets. I also think that like what's happening with the backfield, because I'm with you about Chubb. I do not have much confidence in Chubb. Unfortunately, I am a Browns fan. Nick Chubb was one of my favorite players. I hate to see it, but the dude just did not look anywhere near the same type of player that he was last year. And I realize people are going to say another year off the injury, but he's also getting pretty up there in age. The second devastating knee injury in his career. Like I'm afraid to say I think we're near the end for Nick Chubb in the NFL. But this leads me to believe like they could be more pass heavy than they have been over the last couple of years, especially over last year. And if that's the case, you kind of want the pass catching back, I would think, in the offense, which projects to be Woody Marks. I mean, there's no reason to draft Woody Marks other than to make him, a pass catcher in the backfield. I'd be really interested to see what would happen with Dameon Pierce if he was healthy. I wonder like what kind of reps he'd be getting right now if he was healthy, because he was good as a rookie in a certain kind of scheme. That scheme changes to the man scheme last year, and he does not fit in that scheme. But they're changing back to a gap scheme this year, which Dameon Pierce can play in. But you also have to wonder, is this coaching staff just kind of like off the Dameon Pierce hype at all? Where do you stand on that? All that?
I'm right there with you. I would love to see it. I'm more interested in him at cost than Chubb.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's really any cost to Damian Pierce
Yeah,
because
you could
nobody's
just have him if
drafting
you
him
want
anywhere.
him.
More of a dynasty play,
Sure,
honestly.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
somebody to keep on the roster just in case. Definitely interested in him in that format, and I'd like to see him get a legitimate shot again. My thing with Mixon right now is the price just hasn't fallen enough. He's going around,
Yeah.
I think RB 15 to 18 before this news, and then now he is RB 25 to 30 on different platforms. And I would like to see that go maybe 5 spots further before I'm interested.
Yeah. Do you think he starts the season, or do you think he's actually going to miss time to start the year?
I'm expecting him to miss time right now. I think I'm projecting him for roughly 13 or 14 games played at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, baking in some amount of, re-aggravation or just missing, running backs, more often than not do miss a game or two, just nature of the position and that lingering injury going into the season. I would think the Texans would want to rest him too, because this is a team thinking about the playoffs. They'd want him to be healthier as this, later in the season than the beginning of the season.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And Woody Marks, once again, just want to reiterate, that is the guy to target. Get him in every league.
Yeah, his prices climbed a little bit now, since this news, because people kind of caught on a little bit. But for like most of the offseason leading up to this, he was just a last round pick in every format, basically.
Yeah, I absolutely love the profile.
All right.
And let's see, he's going on Yahoo right now, 167 overall, ESPN 192 overall. So yeah, I'm super, super in on that price.
All right. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick minute to hear from the Podfather. And when we get back, we're talking more preseason storylines.
People say, oh, there's so much free on Player Profiler. What's in the premium package? Well, it starts with the player rankings. We have the best process for ranking and projecting players, not just seasonal leagues, though. We're talking about tight end premium, specifically FFPC, best ball, specifically underdog, including their superflex rankings. And then we have IDP rankings, dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, Scott Fishbowl rankings, offensive line rankings by Dan Fornick, cornerback rankings throughout the season where you can see who's matched up with who. It's incredible. And think about who's contributed to our processes over time. Math majors, analytics powerhouses. Plus, you get the contributions from the real football guys. Billy Muzio, Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder. That's why our rankings are the best. And if you want to upgrade and go all in, use promo code Underworld or your host promo code, and you get $25 off.
Back here on Press Coverage with Evan Ringler, talking preseason storylines, and we're on to JJ McCarthy. He's back. We got to see one game of him before he lost his entire rookie year. He's back. The excitement is very high for JJ McCarthy right now, and a lot of that has to do with the environment around him. Kevin O'Connell, the offensive line, the weapons, everything is there for any QB who starts for the Minnesota Vikings. And really, I'm interested to see in this preseason what he looks like again. Is he running around? Because I want to see that athleticism on display again. He hurt his knee, and he was a player coming in the NFL who was considered pretty athletic. And I don't know if he was going to run very much in his rookie season, but I think he at least has the athleticism to do it. I'd like to see some willingness to do that in the preseason. But I'm also looking at the Vikings have been a very high pass rate over expected team under Kevin O'Connell. It's kind of their MO. But does that change at all with what is essentially still a rookie in JJ McCarthy? What do you think?
I think it definitely will. I've dropped their pass rate by, I think, 4 or 5 percentage points coming into this year. And that's mostly due to just everything they've done this offseason. As you mentioned, JJ McCarthy is essentially a rookie, and they went out and acquired 2 interior offensive linemen for fairly high price tags in free agency. And then they trade for Jordan Mason from the 49ers, which is kind of signaling to me that they really want to run the ball this year, even though obviously they have some of the best weapons in the league. To me, it seems like they definitely want to run the ball more.
Yeah, so McCarthy's been kind of drafted this like fringe QB1 almost, round QB 15, pretty much all offseason. He started out a little bit lower than that, but like quickly climbed to this mark and has kind of stayed around there for most of the offseason. Have you been scared off of that price?
I'm not totally scared off. It does seem a tad high, but I'm just right around consensus with them. He's one of those guys where I don't know if he's necessarily good yet. I'm not a quarterback evaluator, but I do know that he is in a godlike situation. So
Yeah.
I'm not fading that guy. He's got one of the best play callers and one of the best skill groups around him, plus an improved offensive line too.
Yeah. I like that they bolstered the offensive line this offseason. They dealt with some injuries last year and kind of had to work on that on the fly in season last year. And I do think it like affected them down, towards the end of the season. McCarthy, I was very much into him to start the offseason. Like as we went into, like Super Bowl ends and I'm like, yes, JJ McCarthy, because I always believed that was their plan for 2025.
Yeah.
And I thought he was a good prospect. The current price which has been the price for most of the offseason, I think is appropriate. That's what I would say, where it's like, I don't have any problem with it. I'm not specifically being aggressive with it where it is. I'm not fading it. I'm just like, this is a good price where it is. When I'm on a best ball site and I've drafted Justin Jefferson or TJ Hawkinson or Jordan Addison, I'm automatically going to be interested in drafting JJ McCarthy and would happily do it at price. But he's not a quarterback where I'm saying I want to make sure I have a ton of exposure to him at this specific price. I just think it's fine.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there are so many good quarterback values at ADP this year that I'm not really all in on anybody. I'm just kind of in on a bunch of guys, Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, Drake May, just so many guys that have fantastic prices at the moment. And I'm not really scared of any of them. Just whichever one falls to me in the right location, especially one that I can stack with, that's the one I'll go with.
Yeah, I agree with you big time there. All right. This next one, we can go in a lot of different directions. And I'd like to go into all of them because we're talking Patriots hype. This team might have like the biggest hype of the offseason, I would say, in a lot of ways, considering where they started from and how they're viewed going into this year, because they've got an over-under win total in Vegas right now of 8.5 games. They're favored in more than that. And, Drake May looked great in a terrible situation last year. They made all these great additions to the offense. They drafted Will Campbell. They drafted Trevion Henderson. They drafted Kyle Williams. They signed Stephon Diggs. All these things. That the coaching staff change. I think bringing Josh McDaniels is a huge thing for this offense because he brings some stability and some real offensive play calling to this team. Are you into this hype? And if so, where are you into it?
I don't want to spoil all the great vibes that are coming around right now, but there's one glaring problem that people aren't talking about enough. According to our offensive line rankings at Player Profiler, done by the fabulous Dan Fornick, the Patriots are 32nd out of 32 teams. That scares me quite a bit. So I don't think that this offense is going to take over the league or be a top 10 offense. I don't know if they're going to be a top 20 offense. I definitely am intrigued by a lot of their players, no doubt about it. But they're just not going to score enough points because of that offensive line.
Well, I mean, that is hard to hear as a big Drake May bull and a fan of the offense in general going into the year. I am getting pretty invested into the offense as a whole, I have to say. I am very excited for it. I understand that the offensive line is not going to be great to start. I also think that Will Campbell could do a lot for the offensive line, and if this offensive line can gel at all, we could see them just perform a little bit better. I also think that Drake May as a mobile quarterback can help them a good bit. Like the Washington Commanders last year were not seen as this like great offensive line going into the year. Now, I'm not saying Drake May is Jaden Daniels, but Jaden Daniels' just calmness in the pocket and ability to maneuver and get out of trouble helps the offensive line. And I think that Drake May can possibly do that for them. And really, for fantasy, we saw Drake May kind of already do it in a worse situation, in my opinion. Like the offensive line was already bad. May was getting there.
Yeah.
He's the one I'm the most confident in, no matter I think there's a very good chance that the ball gets spread around so much in the passing game that maybe none of his weapons necessarily get there. I like Hunter Henry the most at cost of his passing options, but it's possible that the ball gets spread around enough that none of them really get there. But then I'm also really excited for Trevion Henderson in this offense because I think they're going to really need him in the passing game, and he's going to be involved a lot in the passing game and rack up a good amount of receptions, and he can get there that way. What do you think?
I think I for the most part, I agree with you on the fantasy side of this. I am in on Drake May, even though I don't see him having a top 5 quarterback ceiling just because of I just don't think he'll score enough points. But the way that he plays the position is exactly what we want for fantasy. So I am in on him. And as you mentioned, Trevion Henderson, I'm also in on him. Not, I'm mostly just at consensus with him, but I just don't think that Ramondre Stevenson is very good, and Henderson's better than him in pretty much every way. Although, maybe Ramondre will still steal some volume from him, but I want that rookie upside late in the season. And then you mentioned Hunter Henry. That's been a guy that I've been above consensus on all offseason. I think he's a great tight end 2 target, especially in best ball at the moment. Receivers are tough. They're tough. I am a bit confused by Diggs because he is a very old receiver coming off of an ACL, but he's going to see a lot of targets. I mean,
Right.
if you do projections, good luck not giving him, 23, 24% at
Yeah.
minimum of the target share. So I'm still fairly in on him. I'm not going crazy. And then for me, the other one that is intriguing is Kyle Williams, the rookie receiver they drafted this year. I think that the steam in best ball is a little too much for me. It's just a little too spicy. When I do the projections, it just doesn't, the targets just don't work out in my opinion, unless he is taking over that wide receiver 2 slot early in the season. I just don't see how he gets there for our teams.
Your note about Stephon Diggs going through projections, like I felt the exact same thing. My first pass through projections right after the NFL draft, yeah, it's like, how do you not give him like that amount of a target share in this offense? Like, who else is earning targets at a consistent rate? And then like it spits out his fantasy points. You're like, boy, I don't know if I actually believe in that though. Like,
Yeah.
I think that Stephon Diggs is good for Drake May because it gave him a really competent pass catcher. Like if Kyle Williams doesn't work out, at least we know he has Hunter Henry and Stephon Diggs, who are like reliable pass catchers at this point, which I think is a great thing for him to have. I realize that's probably, a little bit of meanness to Stephon Diggs to just call him a reliable pass catcher, but because of the age, because of the injury, I think like it's fair to say that at this point. Would it surprise me if he comes out and like looks like 80% of what the Stephon Diggs we know? No, it wouldn't surprise me that much just because I think he's a really good athlete and he seems to come back from this injury pretty quickly and is doing his thing out there in training camp. So
Yeah,
it
all
wouldn't
the
surprise
reports
me.
are glowing at the moment about his
Yeah,
health.
which is crazy, but like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. Like if that's the case, but it would surprise me if he comes out and he's just like, 7 ADOT and is just catching all these short passes and, not really explosive anymore. And that's all there is to it. Okay. That would make sense too.
Yeah, I'm pretty much expecting him to be a consistent back end wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. That's kind of what I'm expecting for this year. I don't see any like top 15 wide receiver upside really. Again, just because of the touchdowns, I don't see how he gets there. Kyle Williams, he does have the late season upside at least, just because of where he's drafted in best ball. If he was to see a lot of routes towards the end of the season, then he could pay off in a big way. But I just the early season, I don't think he's going to be on the field a ton.
I like your points there. Like Stephon Diggs is kind of just a floor wide receiver.
Yeah,
I would give him that kind of label for the season. Like I think he's a good person to kind of pair with someone like a Travis Hunter in
sure.
drafts, like we mentioned, that can help you get through the weeks in which Travis Hunter's not getting there for us. But I also agree that Kyle Williams does have this like little bit of unknown late season upside that he could have in this team. It will be interesting to see who's actually starting on the outside for this offense because, I think Kayshon Boutte has looked all right in his time, in his limited opportunities. He's performed okay. Had a little bit of connection with Drake May last year. Does he hold off Kyle Williams at all? It'll be interesting to see. This is definitely something to watch through this preseason. Is where people are lining up, how many snaps are playing, how many snaps are playing at different positions. Like is Stephon Diggs moving around the formation? Is he just outside? Is Demario Douglas, continuing this camp hype into the preseason, which he's been getting? I'm a closet Demario Douglas fan. I've drafted probably too much of him this offseason, but I do think that he can be a reliable floor wide receiver late in drafts
Yeah,
if you need one.
yeah, I totally agree on that. For the sake of the offense being good, I hope that he's not on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. But he will earn targets. There's no doubt about it. He's second on the team in targets in my projections, at least.
All right. Last topic of the day is Terry McLaurin, because we still don't know exactly what's happening with him at this point. He wants a new contract. Makes sense. He's getting up there in age. It's kind of his last chance at a bag, pretty much. So he's asking for a trade. He's asking to get his money. We are kind of in no man's land right now in regards to that. By the time this show comes out, who knows? Maybe we find out something more by then. But right now, I just want to know, do you think he gets traded? Do you think he gets re-signed? If he gets traded, where do you think he could go? What do you think?
I haven't put any thought into him getting traded. I just don't see it as a realistic possibility at all. Although I will say that his contract demand of more than DK Metcalf is aggressive for a 29, 30-year-old receiver. That is very aggressive. I don't know if they're quite going to get there, but these things always just end up with him being healthy and ready to go week one. I don't believe the injury is real either. It's just a way for him to not get fined. But I will say that in terms of fantasy, I am above consensus on Terry. I have him around wide receiver 16 at the moment, which is ahead of consensus, I believe. The consensus is around 20 to 21, looks like. The way I see it is that I'm in on this offense. I want to be in on this offense.
Yeah.
The defense is worse than it was last year. I'm expecting significant regression there. They have added a little bit to the offensive line. And generally, I just want the number one weapon for Jaden Daniels. Now, I know that the touchdown rate is going to regress this year, but he can also see more targets. So that's how I think he gets there this year, is just the efficiency of the offense, the volume of the offense, because they're very fast paced as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then just earning more targets and, Jaden Daniels, I'm in.
Yeah. So I'm with you that I haven't really entertained him actually being traded at this point. Like, I think it'd be pretty dumb for the Commanders to let him, or let it get to a point where they have to trade him, because after Terry McLaurin, it's not looking that great for pass catchers for Jaden Daniels. They kind of need him, and that might make them have to overpay him, but that's the kind of position you're in. I think you kind of have to do it. If you let Terry McLaurin get off this team, what are you doing? Because this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And there's no way you're going into the season with what Zach Ertz is your number one receiver. Like, we're not doing that.
No chance.
I figure this gets worked out in some way. I thought his price was pretty aggressive to start the offseason. He was going in like the third round basically everywhere. And I thought that was pretty aggressive. I agree with you that touchdown rate should come down. It was pretty bloated in 2024. I'm not sure how many more targets he's going to earn, just because he's kind of been who he has been every year of his career. He just happened to hit on the touchdowns this past year with Jaden Daniels. I do think there is room for some improvement, just because Jaden Daniels improvement too. I mean, it's a possibility, and them passing even more, becoming an even more prolific offense. But I don't know how much. I do think his price now is good though. I'm definitely into this at this point. I think this is a good price where he is now. But while we're at least on the subject, I know we said neither of us really think he's being traded, but let's play make believe land and try and think of some places where he could go that might be fun. I think that'd be fun. And I'll go first because I want him to go to the team we were just talking about. I want the Patriots to trade for Terry McLaurin. I think that'd be fantastic.
Ooh,
and I think he fits them really well. What do you think?
Yeah, that is really sexy. I would love to see that. The team that immediately came to mind is just my team, because I'm very biased. But the Seahawks, they need an outside receiver. That'd be cool.
It's funny to mention that he wanted DK Metcalf money, and that's where DK Metcalf just used to play, where they probably did not want to pay him that money. So I imagine that one's probably not going to happen, because if you trade for Terry McLaurin, you're paying him. Right? That's part of this, right? Any team that wants to trade for him has to pony up the money.
Yeah, so Patriots I would say, the Patriots might actually consider that. Again, this is all hypothetical; it's not going to happen, but it would be fun, and it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Another one that I think could make some sense, although truthfully, off the top of my head, I don't know if they might have the money for it. Buffalo.
Oh yeah. Just give me one real target earner in that offense, please.
Yeah,
just
an
one
actual real deal outside wide receiver for Josh Allen again. Let's do it.
Yeah,
come on,
seriously, come on.
The more we talk about it, I kind of want either of those options over Terry McLaurin in Washington a little bit, just because I think it'd be fun to see him with either of Josh Allen or Drake May. But he also fits very well with Jaden Daniels. Their connection was immediate last year. So I think, the Commanders just got to make this happen.
Yeah. And, going back to the touchdown rate thing, I don't think that necessarily he has to regress. I know that he has been a low touchdown rate player throughout his career, but that's not when he had Jaden Daniels. So maybe it comes down a little bit, but he can still score a lot of touchdowns just because it's a great offense with, he's the clear number one target there. I don't think Debo has a lot left. I don't think Zach Ertz has a lot left. And outside of that, Who are you worried about? Noah Brown or Austin Eckler?
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's a good point about regression too. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean he has to come back down to where he was in previous years. It just means trending towards that direction, right? He could still have a
Right.
higher touchdown rate with Jaden Daniels that he had in the past, just maybe not quite as high as it was last year. I think like sometimes context gets lost when we start talking about regression. A lot of the time, people just and it gets lost when in the fact that it can be regression specifically for that player, not necessarily for the position that player plays. Like Mike Evans, if he has an extra high, touchdown percentage one year, he's going to regress to what is still a very high touchdown percentage because that's who he is. That sometimes gets lost in those conversations.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually looking at something earlier this week, which was touchdown rate over the last 2 seasons by all receivers, and the top 4 is just like Mike Evans and Cortland Sutton, and then Jordan Addison is in
Yeah.
there for some reason.
19 touchdowns through 2 years. Pretty good.
Yeah, and looking at that seems like a clear one that will regress because he's not a red zone guy like those other guys are. He just breaks these big plays off, and so yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to get that take out there that Jordan Addison will regress, but somebody like Mike Evans or Cortland Sutton will not.
Little bonus take there for everyone out there, that little Jordan Addison hate coming from Evan. All right, well, Evan, this was good stuff. Before we get out of here, let everyone know where to find you, find all your work, all that.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was a great time. You can find all of my content over at playerprofiler.com. Soon to come are big updates to the player page metrics. We got a lot of cool stuff that'll be coming out very shortly. And then outside of that, I'm involved in all the rankings that happen over there. And on Twitter, you can follow me at Evan Ringler FF. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Awesome. Happy to have you. As for me, you can follow me on Twitter at WyattB_FF. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to this video, make sure you do it right now. And make sure you're liking and subscribing to everything Player Profiler. We're here to help you win in fantasy football. Lastly, if you're not playing on Fast Draft yet, you really should be. Sign up with code Wyatt for a first time deposit match up to $50. I appreciate all of you. We'll see you next time.